YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. This is the political issue this morning, 7th day of March. There are 13 articles in this episode. All the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. The first article that I have for you, caller, it says exclusive. Democrat super lobbyist Podesta $1,000 to end U.S. sanctions on Russian bank. Democrat super lobbyist Tony Podesta was paid $170,000 over a 6-month period last year to represent Sberbank, it's Sberbank, Russia's largest bank, seeking to end one of the Obama administration's economic sanctions against that country. The Daily Caller News Foundation investigative group has learned. Founder and chairman of the Podesta Group as a key lobbyist on behalf of Sberbank, according to Senate lobby disclosure forms. His firm received more than $24 million in fees in 2016, much of it coming from foreign governments, according to the Nonpartisan Center for Responsive Politics. Podesta is the brother of John Podesta, who was the national campaign chairman for former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, losing 2016 campaign for the presidency. Barack Obama imposed the sanctions following the Russian seizure of the Crimean region of Ukraine in 2014. The lobbying campaign targeted the executive branch, with Podesta and other lobbyists arranging at least 2 meetings between Sberbank officers and Department of State officials, according to Alina, Sberbank's board chairman, who spoke to the House aides in August. The discovery of high-profile Democrats like Podesta being paid lucrative fees for lobbying to lift U.S. sanctions on Russia contrasts with charges from Democrats that President Donald Trump and his key aides Russia, while Obama administration was tough on Moscow. Podesta's efforts were a key part of under-the-radar lobbying during 2016 U.S. presidential campaign, led mainly by veteran Democratic strategists to remove sanctions against Sberbank and VTB Capital, largest bank. The bank spent more than $700,000 on Washington lobbyists as they sought to end the U.S. sanctions, according to Senate lobbying disclosure forms and documents filed with the Department of Justice. The group charged Sberbank $20,000 per month, plus expenses on a contract from March through September of 2016. Podesta is one of the Democrats' highest-profile lobbyists who enjoys close personal and business connections to former President Obama and Bill Clinton. Podesta was chief of staff in Clinton's White House and special counselor White House. Both Sberbank and VTB Capital face severe cash shortages due to plunging oil prices, plus the U.S. sanctions. Sanctions were lifted, however, both banks could legally seek funds from American financial institutions. Democrats are sitting there trying to convince us that the Russians are trying to throw the elections to Trump. Congressional aide who requested anonymity and met Tbilisi, CNF. And then here in the House with the administration behind closed doors on issues of sanctions, the hypocrisy could not have been any richer, he said. The Podesta lobbying campaign was David Adams, who described himself on the Podesta Group website as a trusted advisor to Hillary Clinton, serving as her assistant secretary of state for congressional affairs. The lobbyist was Stephen Rademacher, a former Department of State official in the George W. Bush administration. Also worked for Democratic lobbying shop Manat, Phelps and Phillips. Phillips is best known for hiring liberals, Democrats. The company's founder, Chuck Manette, is a former Democratic National Committee chairman, while Mickey Kantor, another Manette executive, served as Bill Clinton's Commerce Secretary. The group represented Bank and its subsidiaries, Trochia Dialogue Group and SBG Cyprus Ltd. in Nicosia, Cyprus, and SB International in Luxembourg. Also was related to Klein Limited, a Cayman Island organization that tens of millions of dollars to environmental groups and opposed low-cost fracking in the U.S., which was hurting the Russian oil industry. The Podesta Group represents dozens of foreign embassies in the nation's capital, as well as many authoritarian regimes like Vietnam, Myanmar, and Somalia. Also represents political parties in Moldova and Albania, according to its Foreign Agents Registration Act called FARA. A second lobbying shop, the Madison Group, also represented Esper Bank and received $330,000 from the bank in 2016, according to records. Two of the three Madison lobbyists are lifelong Democrats. A third lobbying firm, Manitos and Manitos, represented VTB Capital Bank and received $17,500 per month to seek an end, according to their FARA filings with the Department of Justice. Was an advanced man for former President Lyndon Johnson and Assistant Secretary for Commerce Administration. The Esper Bank relationship goes back many years. Esper Bank was a financial institution in the Russian deal to purchase Uranium One, owned by one of Bill Clinton's closest friends, Frank Gistera. Bill Clinton led the Clinton-Gistera enterprise, an integral part of the Clinton Foundation. Gistera had additionally donated $20 to the Clinton Foundation. Sought to sell his stake. Gistera sought to sell his stake in reserves that included ones in the Western United States, and Hillary Clinton, who, as Secretary of State, approved the sale. And swoop, 20% of America's uranium ore was sold to the Russian State Atomic Agency. Sale, the Podesta Group representing the company, and it tried to advance the transaction. You have that information. This one that I have for you, Mad News, and we'll give the hamster a second to get it up here on the page for me. Worked hard tonight with all these articles. This one, Maxine Waters just admitted Obama made sure Trump was spied on. Democratic California just can't stop running her big mouth when it comes to President Donald Trump. Waters, known for one of the biggest screw-ups in Congress for her blatantly ignorant rants, might find herself being killed by the Democrats after she just admitted that Barack Obama made sure Donald Trump was spied on. Waters didn't realize what she was saying until it was too late. And on MSNBC's Chris Hayes, Waters outlined the Obama administration's illegal actions days that ensured Trump's administration would be compromised. Waters is too stupid to understand it is illegal. Referring to the bogus accusations that Trump was in cahoots with the Russians, Waters said, is a trail, and I think the Obama administration has done everything that it can possibly do to make sure that enough people have seen some of the meetings and some of the connections. So what is she referring to? Obama illegally spying, of course, and then the leaks to the media coming from the spying. Waters says Obama did everything he could to make sure enough people have seen some of the meetings and and connections. She's admitting that Obama made sure the government officials loyal to him were able to spy on Trump and his associates. Yeah, she's that ignorant. Legal and what's illegal. If you want to pull this up and see how ignorant this woman is. Try this again. Jay Sekulow busted his story, or this story, wide open 2 weeks ago. He found that Obama amended Executive Order 12333 and changed who in our government could obtain the information gathered, highly secret information that could come secret wiretap, for example. The significantly relaxed long-standing limits on what the NSA may do with the information gathered by its most powerful surveillance operations and regulated by American wiretapping laws, wrote Sekulow's associate Harry Hutchinson, explaining that 17 days before President Obama left office, he allowed the NSA, who used to control the data, it to 16 other agencies, and that just festered leaking situation, and that happened on his way out as the president was leaving the office. Are aware of what Obama did. This, where are all these leaks to the press coming from? Those Obamaites still in place within 16 different agencies. Obama planted those spies, and then before he left off, executive order ensuring they could access all of the information gathered, like information gained from illegally wiretapping Trump Tower. So Maxine just made it clear, made sure an illegal trail of spies gathering information on Trump, and sure as many people as possible saw that information, no doubt referring to the leaks to the liberal media, who put the leftist spin on anything and everything. This is highly illegal. Will prevail in exposing this silent coup attempt against him. We cannot let Maxine Waters get away with running her big mouth again, especially when this time she's incriminating Barack Obama and the lying scumbags in the Democratic Party who turned a blind eye to his multiple. Wow. Oh, this next one's off the Daily Caller, and it says, Department set up Russian ambassador meeting with Sessions at RNC. The Obama administration helped set up Sessions head with the Russian ambassador in 2016. Heritage Foundation scholar Hans von Spakovsky wrote at foxnews.com that the event at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland that his employer hosted was attended by Russian ambassador Sergei. Spakovsky writes, was a conference titled Global Partners in Diplomacy, where Sessions was the keynote speaker. The State Department, the Heritage Foundation, and other organizations. The conference was an educational program for ambassadors invited by the Obama State Department to observe the convention. The Obama State Department handled all of the coordination with ambassadors and their staff, of which there were about 100 at the conference, Spakovsky writes. Apparently, after Sessions finished speaking, a small group of ambassadors, including the Russian ambassador, approached the senator as he left the stage and thanked him for his remarks. First meeting, and it's hardly an occasion, much less a venue, in which a conspiracy to interfere with the November election could have been hatched. It took place last September in Sessions' office in the former senator's capacity as member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, not as a surrogate for a Trump campaign, Justice Department spokeswoman Sarah Isgur Flores said. According to Isgur Flores, the two men discussed relations between the two countries, not that information. The next one is off of BizPac Review. New York Times columnist solicits IRS to commit a felony and leak President Trump's tax returns. President Donald Trump has spoken about unsavory, if not outright illegal, collusion between rogue government sources and the media. As it is often the case, when the president draws attention to an issue, his concerns are often confirmed in short order. Times columnist Nicholas Kristof coveted such complicity in a tweet Sunday, asking for an IRS source to leak Trump's returns, an illegal act. And it shows the tweet here. It says, but if you're an IRS and have certain president tax return that you'd like to leak, my address is NYT, and gives the New York Times. It says, clearly Kristof yearns for the days under Barack Obama when the IRS was a more reliable ally to the left. Social media users were quick to note that not only would it be illegal for the IRS employees to leak the returns, Kristof's solicitation might draw a little scrutiny as well. Of a response, and there's several of them here. I'll just at random grab one. It says, as a government lawyer, mission to prosecute whomever leaks IRS info to you, then I'll ruin you. And there's a whole list of them here if you want to pull them up and read those for yourself. The next one is off of BizPac Review, and it says Obamacare gave $22 million in tax credit payments to prison inmates, illegal immigrants, and more. Obamacare health exchanges gave more than $100 million in tax credit payments to non-tax filers' identities, and $22 million in tax credits to documented inmates and illegal immigrants. Federal healthcare officials said verifying Obamacare enrollees' identities was irrelevant. Inspector General for Tax Administration, called the TIGTA, report found state and federal Obamacare exchange officials gave $1 million in advance premium tax credit payments to more than 35,000 people who didn't file a tax return in 2014 despite being required to do so. Exchange officials also gave $21.8 million in tax credit payments to more than 11,000 non-filers. The verification process revealed were here illegally or incarcerated, relying on applicants' statements that they weren't in prison instead of federal records. Centers for Medicaid and Medicare officials told the IG that Affordable Care Act identity documentation isn't a factor in health insurance eligibility. When we provided the result of our review to CMS, management stated that the ACA, or the Affordable Care Act, does not require the exchange to verify an applicant's identity, the IG said. Indicated that identity information is not a requirement or a factor in the determination for an individual's eligibility for health insurance coverage through the exchange. 1,276 ACA tax credit recipients who didn't file tax returns in 2014, identity verification represented 13.5% of the 261,872 tax credit recipients the IG analyzed among 2014 non-filers, according to the IG. More than 280,000 total AGA tax credit recipients never 14 taxes, and the vast majority of them, 75%, were in the federal exchange. The refundable premium tax credit is one of the main pitches Obamacare supporters use to market the health care law as attractive and affordable for lower and middle class families. The IG discovered exchange officials relied on tax credit recipients' claims that they weren't incarcerated, as the Social Security Administration data exchange officials use is unreliable. Officials told the IG that they will provide additional information on IG's citizenship findings, but haven't done so yet. The exchanges cut off coverage for 6,128, or 54%, of the 11,088 enrollees who failed to meet citizenship or incarceration requirements, but haven't terminated coverage for the rest. All Obamacare applicants must be lawful citizens or residents of the U.S. where the exchange is located and not be imprisoned. The Government Accountability Office, called the GAO, and the Health IG have raised similar concerns in the past reports about Obamacare exchanges. Failure to test ACA applicants' eligibility. GAO's auditors, for instance, obtained coverage for 10 of the 12 fictitious people they attempted to enroll in Obamacare. Utah Republican Senator Orrin Hatch, chairman of the Senate Committee on Finance, requested the TIGTA report to make sure people applying for ACA coverage and tax credits who are who they claim to be. Andrew Salivate, CMS's former acting administrator, outlined CMS's verification approach in a letter to the IG, but didn't address the specific problems raised in the IG report. The IG issued no recommendations. CMS remains committed to performance and outcomes of the state-based facilitated marketplaces, as well as continuing to protect the integrity of taxpayer dollars, Salivate wrote. Liberty writers. Trump can't stop smiling after seeing what just leaked from Russia. These Democrats cannot catch a break. They are trying to slander duly elected officials in the executive branch. First it was Flynn, now it's Sessions. If you want to pull it up and take a look at it, it says, meet Sergei Kislyak. He's the ambassador that's being referred to as the spy master, and is the ambassador that has been tied to speaking with Sessions and Flynn. Don't see this on CNN. The ambassador just visited the White House 22 times between 2009 and 2016, according to the visitor logs at the White House. Meeting with one of Obama's senior advisors, John Holdren, on September 2016, right before the election ended. Times that Kislyak visited Obama's regime. July of 2016, March of 2016, January of 2016, August of 2015, April of 2014, February of 2014, May of 2013, February of 2013, November of 2012, December of 2011, December 2010, October 2010, May of 2010, April 2010, February 2010, March of 2010, December, September of 2009. Let's expose the lying Democrats more. In August of 2015, he reported that the White House met on Capitol Hill this week to work with Russian and Chinese ambassadors to work on the Iran. During the meeting to foreign policy by an aide to Senator Dick Durbin, Democrat of Illinois, a number of Democrats expressed genuine confusion about how world powers would react if Congress rejected the deal and whether a better deal could be struck in the future. Surprised by this lack of clarity, the diplomats pushed back on a number of counts. It's strange how Democrats can meet with Russian ambassador and yet turn around and accuse Trump of Russian interference. Off of Liberty writers. It says CNN asked the Russian official what she said back as Trump giggling. CNN is fake news. We all know that. Now, even the Russians know it. CNN got blasted by Russian official Maria Zakharova being accused of spreading lies and false news. That journalist for CNN, Matthew Chance, got tuned. Rova. The video is here in this article if you want to pull it up and take a look at it. Chance says Russian officials are not happy with the way this political situation is developing in the United States, is what they're calling it. The idea that Russia somehow intervened in the U.S. elections. They're rejecting that, of course. Specifically, the foreign ministry spokeswoman, Maria Zakharova, had pushed back strongly on the idea that Russian ambassador to the United States in any way related to espionage. She says Mr. Kislyak is a well-known world-class diplomat who was a deputy minister of foreign affairs in Russia, with his American for decades in different fields, and CNN accused him of being a Russian spy. Oh my God, stop. Lies and the false news. For CNN, please stop spreading lies and false news. We just uncovered how Obama White House met with the same Russian ambassador that they are now accusing met with Jeff Sessions. You can read more on that in a link here in this article. It says CNN doesn't get it, the fake news channel. Let's keep CNN blackout going. We'd be able to take down this crap channel. We're getting closer. They just recently fell below Nickelodeon in daytime ratings. So there you have that. Oh, wow. One here is off Liberty Writers. It says, heads will roll if Kellyanne's right. Democrat will lose his job tomorrow. Democrats spend so much time lying about the Republican war on women. The truth is, they're the ones who treat women like dirt. Congressman Cedric Richmond about the presidential senior advisor Kellyanne Conway that can only be described as disgusting. The Free Beacon reports Democratic Representative Cedric made a crude joke about White House senior advisor Kellyanne Conway on Wednesday night during the Washington Press Club Foundation dinner. Conway looked familiar in a position on her knees, referring a viral video Conway kneeling on a couch in the Oval Office, the Daily Caller reported. You even mentioned Kellyanne and that picture on the sofa, Richmond said during his speech to Republican Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. I really want to know what was going on there because she really looked kind of familiar in that position there, but don't answer. Conway is not only a brilliant businesswoman, she's also a mother. To make a comment like that shows you do not have the integrity it takes to serve the American people. America agrees. Demands for Representative Richmond's resignation have been flooding social media. He deserves better than this, and so does our country. And there's a lot of comments after this if you want to pull it up and take a look at those for yourself. The next one is off of BizPac Review. Dems send passive-aggressive letter to White House. You'll never guess what they're asking for now. The Democrats have no proof to support their claims that President Trump conspired with Russians, so they want the Trump administration to manufacture evidence. Several Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee will write to the White House counsel Don McGahn on Monday, asking him to release information detailing any improper contacts between Trump staffers and the FBI. Trump administration has repeatedly denied these unsubstantiated partisan attacks. Citing an anonymous source in a New York Times article, House Democrats allege that White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus had asked FBI Director James Comey to deny reports that Trump's campaign advisors had been in contact with government during the election. We write to express our concern regarding reports of improper contacts between your office and the Federal Bureau of Investigation concerning the FBI's ongoing review of efforts by Russian government to unlawfully influence the U.S. presidential election in favor of Mr. Trump. A draft of the letter reads, according to Fox News. Passive-aggressive reaction to distract attention from President Trump's bombshell claims that former President Barack Obama had spied on him before he took office. Democrats have been in defense mode ever since Trump tweeted that Obama had unlawfully wiretapped Trump Tower in months preceding the election. Obama denied the accusations in a carefully worded statement that left plenty of wiggle room. Neither President Obama nor any White House official ever ordered surveillance on any U.S. citizen. Newsmax founder Christopher Ruddy said He spoke with President Trump over the weekend, and President insisted he will be proven right. I spoke with President twice yesterday about the wiretap story. I haven't seen him this pissed off in a long time. When I mentioned Obama denials about wiretaps, he shot back, "This will be investigated, it will all come out, and I will be proven right." Noted that hypocritical Dems offered no evidence to support their baseless accusations, but demanded that President Trump prove his allegations. A list of these tweets, if you want to pull them up and read them. And then let's see, the last one I'll read. It says, just curious, for months now, we've been getting leaked info from phone calls. Now we're told no tap. So all those stories were lies. The next one here is off of France24.com, and it says, Hollande declares his ultimate duty is to prevent Le Pen victory. Outgoing French President Francois Hollande said in European newspaper interviews published on Monday that his ultimate duty was to prevent a victory of far-right National Front leader Marie this year's election. My ultimate duty is to make sure that France is not won over by such a program and that France does not bear such heavy responsibility, said Hollande, of the risk in the election. He added that it was inevitable that the European Union would have countries progressing at different speeds, and that he saw no reason to call into question Donald Tusk's role as president of the European Council. That the euphoria of financial markets after the election of the U.S. President Donald Trump appeared to be very premature. The interview was published in Le Monde, Le Stampa, The Guardian, La Vanguardia, I don't know, Sadushis, I don't know, Guten Tag, and Gazeta Wyborowski. I guess. I'm guessing at those pronunciations. I'm not French. I don't know. So there you have that article. The next one here is off of The Guardian. It says UK will have to give up all EU perks after Brexit. Francois Hollande warns. And Francois Hollande has warned that Britain cannot hang on to the advantages of EU membership after it leaves, saying his message to Britain is that's not possible. The UK will become an outsider to the European Union. In an interview with The Guardian and 5 other European newspapers, as he prefers to, in Versailles, to discuss the future of the European Union after Britain's departure, Hollande said he regretted Britain's decision to leave, but stressed long-held position that the UK could not exit the EU while holding on to any of the perks of membership. The UK, which is expected to trigger the Article 50 process to leave the EU within weeks, is optimistic about its finding trade agreements with the EU and an advantageous compromise on financial services. But Hollande said the government would not be able to find an alternative in relations with the U.S. under Donald Trump. The UK's problem is this: it had leaving Europe, it would tie up its strategic partnership with the U.S., but it is now, I'll try this again, but it now happens that the U.S. is closing itself off from the world. There we go. Finally got it spit out. The UK has made a bad choice at a bad moment. I regret that. Hollande is to host a mini summit with the leaders of Germany, Spain, and Italy in Versailles on Monday night to prepare the celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Treaty of Rome. Celebrations to take place without the UK on 25th of March will include a declaration on the future of the EU post-Brexit. Several options for the shape of the future of the bloc have been put on the table. Hollande said the option of having multi-speed Europe with different integrating at different levels had been resisted for a long time, but was now becoming a possibility. If not, he warned, Europe could break up. For a more integrated Europe or European defense policy, something that Britain had strongly opposed in recent years, but Hollande said would be open for the UK, which was very close bilateral to France, to have a clear link to any integrated European defense project. The UK, even outside the EU, should be associated with that, he said. France is keen to use the Trump presidency to rally Europeans behind closer defense policies, Hollande said. Try this again. France is keen to use the Trump presidency to rally European policy. Hollande said Trump's suggestions that the U.S. military should disengage from the international arena and defense cooperation had given new momentum to plans for closer European defense. Europe had to avoid depending on any outside powers that might leave it in a submissive role, he warned. Trump worried him. Hollande said, this is not just about emotion or fear. It's political reality. He said it was clear that Trump's line of action was isolationism, closure to immigration, and dodging budget rules. His ignorance of what the European Union is must prove to him the EU's political cohesion, its economic weight, and its strategic autonomy. There we go. Oh, man. My tongue is not one to work. Hollande leaves office in May after becoming the first French president since the Second World War to decide his position wasn't strong enough to run for re-election. He has staked his final weeks in office on pushing France's role in defining future course of the EU, post-Brexit, saying that he would not give in to despair that the EU was in crisis. Speculation that Hollande would seek a post in Europe after ending his French presidency, but he refused to comment on his plans after leaving office. I'm president of France until the beginning of May. That is my only task and focus, he said. And Eurosceptic parties in several European countries has cast a shadow over future plans for the bloc. France's far-right front national leader, Marine Le Pen, who wants France to quit the euro, has promised a referendum on France's EU membership. It's expected to reach the final round of the French presidential election in April and May. The French election race remains highly unpredictable. Independent centrist Emmanuel Macron is making gains in the polls while the scandal hit Francois Fillon is under pressure to stand down. The socialist candidate, Bernard Hamon, who quit Holland's government in protest at pro-business reforms, faces a left-wing vote that splits with the hard left. Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Asked about fears in some European capitals that Le Pen the future of the EU project, Hollande said, the threat exists. The far right has never been this high for 30 years, but France will not give in. People were aware that their presidential election results would determine not only the destiny of our country, but also the very future of the European construction. He said all populists shared the objective of leaving Europe, closing off from the world, and conceiving a future surrounded by barriers of all kinds and borders defended by watchtowers. My ultimate duty is to do everything to stop France from being convinced by such project or taking on such heavy responsibility. That worried him most, Hollande said what worried him most in Europe today was the return of national egotism. each country looking out for its own immediate interest without bringing a common ambition. He said if the EU became a place where each nation simply sought to cherry pick, it would end up diluted and dislocated. He said the ghost of the late British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher still hung over the EU with a growing sense of individual countries' self-interest. When a new policy is raised, I hear more and more often the line, "We don't want to pay more than we get back." Mrs. Thatcher's phrase, "I want my money back." Britain has left, but that bad attitude has remained, he said. Country just came looking for what they had spent. It would be the end of the common spirit. The EU must now show its people that it could defend its own commercial interests in the world, and it had to speed up its decision-making process on urgent issues such as the refugee crisis in the Eurozone. Europe makes good decisions, but too late, he said. Allende said Trump's U.S. election win both reinforced European nationalist and populist parties, but also provided for European progressive candidates to clearly bring their projects to light. On the EU's relationship with Russia, Allende said Moscow was seeking to in a global power while testing our resistance. He said Russia was using every means to influence public opinion, including by using new technology. He said both Chancellor Angela Merkel continued to talk to Vladimir Putin is not to give in, he added. If Europe is strong and united, Russia will want to keep a lasting and balanced relationship with us. Amid the backdrop of fears in Europe of Russia interference or the influence in election campaigns, Allende said, as for ideological operations, they must be uncovered. There has to be clear explanation of who is with who is financed by who. All these far-right movements are more or less linked to Russia. So there you have that. The next one is off the Conservative Tribune. It says Trump's security officials consider military possibilities against North Korea. And if we can get it to scroll up here a little bit. Waiting for the hamster. Come on, little buddy. He's wearing out tonight, this morning, in the wee hours. It's raining outside here. I think that's making him want to sleep. It says, while the Obama administration was mostly content to give North Korea pro forma lectures over the dictatorship's various perfidies, the Trump administration has made it clear it's going to do more than that. Raising some eyebrows in Pyongyang. Speaking of Pyongyang, somebody wrote me an email or wrote me a message a couple days ago giving me hell for not being able to pronounce it. I mean, you know, I could just call it Poontang if that would make everybody happy. Or if I pronounce it wrong, you can just take a drink every time I pronounce it wrong, and pretty soon you won't care what I say. To a report in the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration is reconsidering the United States North Korean policy to put all options on the table, including military intervention. Donald Trump draws a red line. You can count on it being a real red line as opposed to the paper tiger behavior of his predecessor. The move came after North Korea test-fired an intermediate-range missile and allegedly assassinated the brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at a Malaysian airport. Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland convened a meeting with national security officials across the government and asked them for proposals on North Korea, including ideas as well outside the mainstream, the journal reported. The request was for all options ranging from U.S. recognition of North Korea as a nuclear state to military action against Pyongyang, Ms. McFarland's directive was for the administration to undergo a comprehensive rethink of North Korean policy. Earlier this week, CNN reported that a source close to Trump said the president considers North Korea to be greatest immediate threat to the United States, and added that he fears North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may be crazy. However, the president has been questioning whether Kim is crazy or is he smart and strategic, the source said. Trump has also leaned on Chinese to intervene more in North Korea's affairs. Korea, Trump apparently told top Chinese official. The possibility of military action was something that Pyongyang never had to consider under the Obama administration, so one imagines that the North Korean government probably doesn't like this. However, it's yet another sign there's a new sheriff in town. And the final article that I have for you here is off of The Guardian, and it says Donald Trump promised to wipe out ISIS. Perhaps he already has. The current president is like no other. He has achieved that rare feat of being both straightforward and cryptic at the same time. He vowed to curtail Muslim immigration and immediately on taking office put the squeeze on the Sudanese. Thank God for that, because if they had actually had an airport, Sudanese people would be descending on America like drunken coach tourists at a Vegas Hooters. But then he spilled something about terrorists in Sweden that baffles everyone, especially the Swedes, who can't make a lick of sense of what he's talking about. And these are the people who invented IKEA. Let me just say that I understand Trump's abstruse election. After all, I'm a guy who bothered to listen to Dylan's ecliptically, get my tongue working, epically arcane, sad-eyed lady of the lowlands enough times to figure out that it was actually about his drummer. One of Trump's oft-repeated campaign promises was a guaranteed plan to wipe out the Islamic State within 30 days of taking office. Understandably, he refused to tell anyone exactly what that plan was. Everyone will take the idea and run with it, and the people will forget where it came from. He explained during the third presidential debate, he tipped his hand slightly and said, whatever happened to the element of surprise, okay? These people have all left. They've all left. Douglas MacArthur, George Patton are spinning in their graves at the stupidity of our country. I, for one, am willing to believe my president is a man of action. Thus, I can only assume that at some point on or around February the 20th of this year, Trump exterminated ISIS. Any subsequent media mention of this nefarious activity is fake news. Obviously, we don't know exactly how this all went down, because if Trump revealed that intel, someone would steal it, use it to wipe out other terrorist organizations, and forget to give him due credit, which is downright rude. I've taken it upon myself to speculate how and where this epic battle to defeat ISIS took place, pieced together from bits of information I have gleaned from the news. I can't emphasize enough that I'm just spitballing here, but I think it probably happened in Sweden. This explains the mystifying allusion to a lot of terrorists there. It is not possible that the bulk of ISIS recruits, concentrated mostly in Mosul and Raqqa, were systematically beaten back to the outskirts of Stockholm. It makes sense. Nobody in Sweden is paying any attention to world events. They're too busy eyeballing their next door neighbor's income tax statement or watching slow TV broadcasts of a train chugging through a snowbank. More importantly, in terms of rendering and extracting vital information from captives, Sweden is the ideal place. It openly condones torture, as anyone who has ever listened to ABBA knows. It is curious that Trump invoked Patton and MacArthur in their purposely veiled strategy, two generals obsessed with vanquishing their enemy by chasing them across vast swaths of a continent. They must have been desperate, ISIS churning up the earth in full retreat, tattered, disoriented, pausing only to phone up some department stores in the U.S., passing themselves off as fashion buyers, demanding Ivanka's line of haute couture clothing be dropped. If that's not the last desperate act of a disseminated army, I don't know what is. Where exactly was Trump on February the 20th? I'll tell you where. Dining poolside at his swanky Mar-a-Lago retreat in Florida, watching fellow members swimming in $100 bills like Scrooge McDuck, and probably conducting a fake meeting with cabinet member. The perfect ruse. While diners within earshot could openly listen in on discussions of what they assume was top-level national security policy, the real policy was being carried out in the suburbs of Stockholm. ISIS was being slaughtered wholesale. That's a Bacalayan scenario straight out of the Third Reich. Although by no means should we make the mistake of comparing Trump to Hitler. Hitler managed to get elected without the help of the Russians. Whether or not Trump's achievement will halt the furious rotisserie of dead generals is anybody's guess. Patton stopped the German army. MacArthur stopped the Koreans. ISIS consists of 160,000 recruits. To put this in perspective, there were 160,000 people at Lionel Richie set at Glastonbury last year. I'm not playing down the evil of ISIS. I'm just saying that the appeal of traveling to a jihadi stronghold to engage blood of apostates is no more or less appealing than standing in mud and watching a guy sing about dancing on a ceiling. Wait a minute, Rich. You're probably thinking, give Trump's unbridled narcissism, surely he would have tweeted this monumental event in all caps by now. You've forgotten that Trump's strategy is two-pronged. He not only promised to bomb the shit out of ISIS, he also promised to take all their oil. Given the logistical constraints of getting all that oil to America, Trump is probably waiting until the last batch arrives before lording it up over his detractors. I personally look forward to those ISIS brand gas stations opening soon on American street corners. So there you have that. That's all I have for you today. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Have a great day.